Like, there's heavy implications that these characters are way stronger than what we've seen. We've just yet to see the crazy flashy feats that we can measure like we could suspect. Like, there's numerous statements throughout the show, even though we haven't seen him necessarily do stuff like this, it's implied they can do greater things like destroy heaven, like Zeus in this occasion. Even though this video isn't about Zeus, I'm just giving you ideas of how this verse could evolve when it comes to their overall power level. We just haven't really seen the full capacity yet. Even viewing the Big Bang as a thrill, yeah, so they imply these characters could be way stronger than what I present in this video, so I'm just giving you a heads up on that. But yeah, you'll see. One of the few animes where Jesus appears. In the anime where the mortals have to fight the gods, you're probably thinking that's too one-sided. Because after all, what hope would a human have against an actual deity? I would have thought the same thing if humans wasn't super overpowered, like this human, for example. Adam, the first man to ever walk the earth, having divine eyes, for example. Not to mention one of the Valkyrie actually helping out the humans, giving them a cheat code weapon to where the weapons pretty much are equalizers and the weapons themselves is what makes them be able to fight with the gods, divine weapons. There's even implications that Buddha is the reason why this little technique of humans being able to actually fuse with the Valkyrie to become strong enough to actually fight gods is because of Buddha. Like in this occasion with Loki, it was stated that his method, apparently, in the world of Buddhism, of course, if two people forfeit each other's lives and put them on the same lotus, it brings out the full potential of one's being. This power is, they call it, the common destiny. And this is the reason why it's even possible to counter even the gods, by betting on the life of a Valkyrie. So basically, humans and Valkyries helping each other out to become more powerful. It seemed like it wasn't a bluff when Loki was saying it about Buddhism or about Buddha on how he can make a divine treasure, or in this case, Buddha's occasion to make a divine weapon on the spot and use his compassion to fuel it. Their fates have intertwined. A new divine weapon has been born, the ultimate weapon, which none but he who has attained the great nirvana in the pure lands could create. So yeah, in this tournament, there was gods on this side and humanity on this side. But one of the deities, like Buddha, for example, decided to fight for humanity. So he actually switched sides so he can fight for humanity because he does what he wants, right? Yeah, he said he was fighting for humanity because he felt like it. Because the story so far is literally just a conference of all the gods deciding the fate of mankind. Should they be extinct? Should they be allowed to live? In this particular instance, it was agreed upon to have like a tournament for their survival thanks to a Valkyrie. A lot of gods or mankind beings that have Valkyries, super treasures to help them fight these gods, have a lot of different type of abilities, but the universe is pretty straightforward, if I'm being honest. Like, it's not too confusing. They have piercing weapons, blunt power weapons, super fists, being able to hit hard, just the standard durability stuff. It's the standard things you would expect, so it's not rocket science. Let's talk about Buddha. Just like most characters, he doesn't have that many appearances. This manga is fairly new still, but we can get an idea of his might still, though. Probably part of the reason why he's so cool is that there was a point in his life where he actually was human, so it kind of makes sense for him to want to fight for humanity. Like, it's shown on occasions like this, you see in his past he has fighting training. Usually in fiction, when a character is like a deity or has been a deity all their life, they neglect their actual fighting skills. Well, since there was a good time period where Buddha was actually a normal human, one can say he couldn't rely on his like invulnerabilities and stuff, and he was a really good sword fighter, so one can say he got the jump on some deities maybe. They even say what his name used to be, then later becomes Buddha, so he actually ascended to godhood, but he wasn't at first. So yeah, at one point he was a baby, grew up, still as a mortal, but then ascended, you know? One can say destiny played his part. It was destined for him to be the greatest of all humanity, and one day shall come to rule the world, promised the best future by the gods. It's little stuff like this nobody noticed when he was still human. He could still lift up heavy coffins like this, for example. You see? I mean, yeah, it's obvious he has super strength. You see him as a deity here, crush this BS with his vice grip, with just his forearm strength. You know, that's just how guys are, super strong. See, here's the thing. Buddha hates fate. Like, he hates stuff being predetermined and you don't really have no choice, really. When he was talking to his brother, he kind of had an epiphany. Whose life was I living? Was this all a part of the plan? Did I do anything for myself? Did I think for myself? Everything was handed to me. One can say this was like the beginning of the end of him basically becoming enlightened and things. You see his eyes even change. He kind of decided to live a life of freedom, to do his own thing, jump into the wilderness, leaving all his material things behind him to tread his own solitary path. The thing about being Buddha and the thing about achieving enlightenment, he has some unique abilities because of this enlightenment. Buddha just doesn't like it when a god or a man denies somebody of their internal happiness and to impose fate on them. They state this man abandoned royalty, abandoning family, abandoning worldly desire, abandoning 6 emotions. He walked alone, and he is a man in just 6 years this man attained enlightenment. Speaking of being enlightened, let's talk about these eyes. You guys already know about how gods in this universe have superhuman strength, speed, but one can say he has a very good attribute when it comes to speed because he can kind of already know what you're going to do before you do it because of these enlightened eyes. Like, he's literally one of those characters that's extremely hard to hit because he can kind of know what you're about to do before you do it thanks to this enlightenment type vision. They was talking about it here. They was comparing his ability to the other guys they saw. It was a prediction ability, but Buddha's is not like that. It's not a prediction ability. Buddha has legit future vision. It kind of reminds me of Spider Sense, how you can see a slight glimpse in the future to know to avoid something. It's, if you know Marvel Comics, this is kind of what Buddha has in this universe. It's a state only someone with enlightenment can attain. It's called pure enlightenment, eighth consciousness. So he's already a deity, so he already has superhuman reflexes and speed, but on top of this, he already knows what you're about to do before you do it. How do you counter something like this? The only limitations one can say is that he can only see a moment ahead, not too much ahead, not no 2 minutes or nothing in the future or nothing. The only thing I can think of to be able to beat this future sight, if you're just so overwhelmingly more faster than him, I would think this future sight wouldn't matter. Like, say if somebody was a million times faster than Buddha, maybe the future sight wouldn't matter at that point when you're that much faster, you know what I mean? But considering beings in this tournament are pretty much more or less comparable to the same level of speed, and Buddha himself already has incredible speed, it's dang near almost close to impossible to hit him. The only weakness to this attack is where if somebody doesn't have light in their soul, if it's pure darkness, he can't see their attack coming. Because the way the eight consciousness works, it sees the fluctuations of the soul. Whenever a person decides the course of action, their soul moves before their body does. The soul or the will moves before the body. By seeing the radiance of the will, by seeing movements of the light within every creature, Buddha knows what will happen next. But if a being doesn't have a single speck of light, Hajin's soul is rendered unseen. How often do you think this is going to happen when it comes to the opponent not having like light in his soul? Even if your soul was once obscured by a veil of darkness, his soul is trembling so much that it can't be veiled anymore. So that's allowing Buddha to be able to see his attacks, to be able to dodge him, and get the upper hand. Seeing one step ahead of him when at first he couldn't. So it can actually come back if the character starts trembling. That's why when you got occasions like this, when people pull out guns, nothing seems to worry him. They shoot him from point blank range, and he easily dodges their attacks because of this enlightenment, or one could say the enlightenment plus the fighting speed to help him out. But I'm going to get back to this in a second on how he can easily dodge bullets from point blank. That should be light work for a god like him. On top of him having super strength, super speed, ridiculous enlightenment, light reflexes to be able to see the future, he has a divine weapon, Buddha's divine weapon, the 6 realm staff. 6 realms. The 6 realm staff is able to store power of those 6 guardian Buddhas. And in this case, you can see how it changed form here, for example. But the only drawback is that it only reacts to his emotions. He can't choose weapons he uses himself. Even though he holds a staff in combat and has melee combat skills, that doesn't mean his punches aren't hard, because you can literally see him use his fists if needed. Not to mention his durability seems to match up with his punching power, because he can withstand being hit too and keep on moving. Matter of fact, it's with his fist where you actually see him get an actual legit KO. And that's when the next villain comes out, when this guy was sleepy. Well, I guess he wasn't knocked out cold for long. He would just turn back to his original form. I mean, he's strong without the weapon, but the weapon just adds to the fuel because it can change into different things like this to cause blunt force damage. A literal axe. Of course, you got to have defense, a shield, a sword, a scythe with the head of a lion. You can get angles like this to understand how big this scythe is. Like, one could say he can use the back of it like a thruster to help the speed or power. Like, you see how it's firing out this way like a rocket blast to help his attack speed or momentum, one could say, to increase his attack strength. It will turn into this scythe based on, you know, his emotions. This particular scythe it turns into is when Buddha feels hatred, and that's something he doesn't always do because he's been rejecting that for a while. It's a handy staff, right? Believe it or not, Buddha actually had one of his gears destroyed. That was an extremely powerful being. That's when Buddha got another weapon, one can say is even mightier. Like, he literally forged a weapon on the battlefield because of the deity. By uniting his soul with a deity, made a divine weapon on the spot. In this occasion, this is like a weird case scenario because usually humans have to fuse with a Valkyrie to make a divine weapon and stuff. This is an occasion where he's just a deity. Buddha had to literally fuse his soul with another deity to do this divine weapon creation thing, something probably only exclusive to Buddha. I mean, it's obvious he can punch really hard or kick really hard. Occasions like this show when he simply kicks without necessarily using his staff to hurt deity-like beings like this. One could say his staff can increase the blunt power of his hits, him hitting beings with the staff. This divine weapon he lands concussive hits right here. There was this being Buddha was fighting. He made his weapon into something ridiculously big because he feeds off of misery. It looked like a weapon. It became dang near close to the size of a house. See, it's stuff like this where it kind of gives you an idea of how strong his physicals is, because something that can cause all this impact to the environment. His weapon can not only turn into a shield, but yeah, the weapon is strong, but he has to be able to support the weight of this big house-sized structure that landed on him, and he's able to hold up all that weight. See, the way this world of Record of Ragnarok is built, whether we're talking about how strong a character can lift, or striking, or punching, or attacking power, the way this world is built, whatever a human can do, the gods automatically do better, because it's even confirmed in the lore that even if a human is the strongest of all the three kingdoms, it doesn't really matter. Does he stand a chance against the gods? Not to mention Thor. Obviously, he's got no chance. Like, do you know the human they're talking about in this particular scan? Humans in this world, just from being human and working out and training or whatever, can achieve amazing things. And humans of this world can lift humongous rocks and sling them. One can say lift over 10, or one can say hundreds of tons, thick, solid boulders. Humans can live. One could say whatever this guy can do, Buddha should be able to do more. Not to mention Buddha was strong as a human, but with divinity, of course, whatever this guy can do, lifting up all this heavy stuff, Buddha can do better, which off gate, just as a bare minimum, can lift hundreds of tons if a human can. They even said in this world, no matter if he's the strongest human in the world, they wouldn't be able to touch God. So off gate, that would mean Buddha off gate can lift hundreds of tons if a human can. Because whatever a human can do, the gods can do better. Not to mention the same ridiculously strong human can do stuff like swipe his weapon and cut the entirety of the clouds. Meaning humans can train their way up to the point where they can level mountains and cities, basically. And guess what? This is him in his human form without no divine treasure. And if a human can do that, you already know, even if he is a ridiculously strong human, whatever he can do when it comes to how hard he can attack or his punches or cutting power, Buddha can do better. We're not even counting Buddha's weapon, but with his bare fist, he should be able to tremble or at least delete a city, cities, mountains, you name it. He should be able to easily delete. If a human can split the sky, then so should Buddha, because he's a god and a human was able to do this in his universe, and he's stronger than all humans because he's a god by default. And we're not even going to talk about Buddha pulling out his super weapon. He definitely can hit harder than nuclear bombs if he especially pulls out his other weapons, which is extremely disrespectful still when it comes to his limits. If a human can do this, yes, Buddha can definitely do nuclear bomb type stuff, level mountains or cities. I mean, I already brought this up earlier, but I'm going to go back to it. When it comes to his reflexes, one could say it's his reflexes plus his enlightenment to be able to tell what you're going to do before you do it. You can kind of get an idea of his fighting speed. When this guy tried to shoot him and he was fast enough to avoid it, it shows that he is indeed faster than bullets when it comes to his fighting speed. Dodges him at point blank. So it's already confirmed he's faster than supersonic speeds, but it doesn't end there. Like we've seen his speed in this occasion with Zeus. This is more of a comedic type moment though, where he didn't want to share the delicious foods, and when it comes to his speed, Zeus had issues trying to grab it from him. Like, this is a gaggy moment, but you can kind of get some implications of his speed, him not being slow. Because I know this was a gaggy moment, but you can tell Zeus really wanted some. This can give you an idea of his speed, or one could say his precognition helping out his speed, because you know where he was going to grab before he grabbed it. Sure, Zeus has different forms, and Buddha did this to a Zeus in his skinnier form, not this form. He did not do this to Zeus in this crazy form, but he did it to him in this form, which should at least be the speed of light or close to light speed, you know. I mean, one can say his speed is helped out by precognition because he's constantly dodging beings that are pretty fast because they're gods as well. So in a way, it's kind of cheating. But on top of this, he probably does have superhuman reflexes on top of this as well. Like in a world or universe full of gods, deities, or men, or super ancient weapons or divine treasure weapons that can hurt gods, it makes sense that there's actually gods that can destroy the world on a whim. Like Buddha is literally not threatened by no god. Even Loki, for example, they called him a traitor. Buddha said, "What if I am? What you gonna do about it?" He said he's gonna kill him. And I think we would have loved to see that fight, y'all. This is probably partly because of his precognition, but even when all these beings were trying to gang up on him, he didn't look in the slightest bit nervous at all. If you're not strong enough, he will even yawn like you're boring to him. This being's a deity as well. Zeus usually bullies everybody in the area. This kind of gives you some implications of Buddha's power. He was originally going to try to save his turn for later on. This also kind of implies how strong he thinks Buddha is if he wanted to save him for later. One could say use him as like a trump card, one could say. But he wanted him to go next instead. He changed his mind. This kind of gives you implications of his power because he literally pulled up and pointed at Zeus. If any of the gods won't save the humans, he will. Defying the gods, he even said if any god gets in his way, he will kill them, implying he could kill some of these other deities. Look at Zeus's facial expression. I mean, there's gods that was literally in this tournament that will say they can destroy the world on a whim or create it for fun. That's just how the gods work in this universe. Just to give you some example of what I'm talking about, in the 4th chapter of this manga, for example, it was even stated gods like Thor is capable of shattering the earth. If we take this serious and if we assume that Buddha really was telling the truth, in order for him to be able to compete with any of the deities, he would need to be able to have the punching power or striking power to shatter a moon, things way bigger than the moon like the earth itself. He technically should have the raw power to devastate the earth too if characters like other gods like Thor can. Zeus sees him as a valuable asset. We know Zeus can destroy planets. Buddha should be able to do the same with his fist. It just only makes sense with the lore. Even if we haven't necessarily seen him do it on screen, it just seems like the gods in general should be capable of earth-splitting might, especially if this guy pulls out his different weapon in the different modes it got. Look how Zeus did this, being a being that can destroy planets with ease, stated in the lore. Shiva, god of creation and destruction, kind of bullied this god to the ground like this to imply even more power. And look how confident he was in fighting Zeus, implying that, yeah, Buddha definitely should be able to destroy a planet too, just like most of the gods here can, just like Thor. I mean, matter of fact, Buddha had to fight against an entity whose strength was said that a lot of the gods couldn't even hold a candle to. So yeah, he has to be fighting a planet buster level being. We've already seen planet busters in this tournament. This is after that. So yeah, this being is a genuine monster that Buddha was fighting, a being said to have destroyed half of Helheim long ago. And look what Buddha did to this being's arm. You can literally see Buddha hanging with this being as stated to where a lot of the gods wouldn't even be able to hold a candle to. Buddha's still hanging in there with him. This is a being, might I add, that he can't use his future sight against, so he has to use his pure reflexes against. Might I add that one of his eyes are gone, he's still competing, showing he can fight under duress or pressure when he's in pain. Since this anime is pretty new, one can say, who's to say that Earth is the limitation? What if he can destroy planets or slice planets apart that are even bigger than the Earth? Like Jupiter, or maybe he can make Jupiter tremble. What do you think is the max he could slice open? There's a possibility that these gods, including Buddha, could be way more strong than what they're portrayed or what we've seen visually, because the manga's still new. Like, they even say the Big Bang is a thrill, which could imply they're even mightier. For all we know, Buddha could be able to tremble multiple planets for all we know. How do we know the true limits of them? I briefly mentioned this earlier, where he basically fused his soul with a Valkyrie to create a new weapon. And you already know this villain that he's been fighting is already stronger than a lot of gods can handle, they say, but Buddha can. One can say this ridiculously increases his cutting power, to where if you wasn't sure if he can devastate the earth like this, he for sure, in this state, he can do more. Like whatever he can do before, he can do in this state. So if you had your doubts, in this state, he definitely can do it. And we literally seen Buddha do this to him because of cutting power. Again, look at Zeus' expression, impressed. And Buddha was the winner. But at the end of the day, everybody, all of this could be just me. How strong do you think these Record of Ragnarok characters, do you think they're way above Planet Buster level? I personally think they are. We just need more showings. There's implications that they're way above just planet shattering. This show is just beginning. We're likely to get more in the future. But before I get going, everybody, I gotta say thanks to the donators real quick. Helps out a lot. Respect Buddha from Record of Ragnarok. I'm glad you are enjoying your time on the channel. Make sure you check out the playlist on the channel to see other How Strong videos. If you like what this channel is offering, make sure you hit that subscribe button, and I will see you guys later.